Good evening. It's 8 o'clock in Yerushalayim. This is WebYeshiva.org, and it's time to begin our regular halacha shir. This particular shir is part of our series leading up to Pesach, dealing with the Leil HaSeder and the preparations for Leil HaSeder. In any event, this evening we're going to be talking about kashering utensils, which have been used all year long in a chametz environment, and you want to use those utensils on Pesach. Specifically, we're going to deal with kashering glass utensils. If you have any questions during the class, feel free to type your question on chat. I'll see your question on my screen, and then I can incorporate the answer to the question in the ongoing shiur. Let's get the sources on the screen. Voila. Now, our first source is from the High Middle Ages, the Ra'avya. Ra'avya was one of the heavyweights back in France in the High Middle Ages, and I'm not going to bother telling you the exact chapter and verse that I draw my sources from, because you have that on the screen and in the source materials, so it's easy enough to look up the original sources and see what typographical errors I made, because I'm not a good typist, and you can check the context if you wish. In any event, let's see what the Ra'avya had to say about glass. Hachi amrinin bebraisa de avos de Rabbi Nosson. This is the text, he says. He's going to quote the text from the Avos de Rabbi Nosson. Now, the Avos de Rabbi Nosson, the book he's quoting from, is a Tannaitic work. That means it's from the days of the Tanaim. That means it's from the same rabbis who gave us the Mishnah. The rabbis who gave us the Mishnah gave us a number of other bodies of literature, among them the Avot de Rabbi Natan that we're about to quote from. So this is approximately on the level of importance of a Mishnah. Of course, it was not, this particular text was not incorporated into the text of the Mishnah, so it's not quite as important as the Mishnaic text, but nearly so. Let's see what the Tanaim said. Shlosha devarim ne'emru b'kli cheres. There are three principles which govern the halachas having to do with earthenware utensils, kli cheres, earthenware utensils. Shlosha b'kli zchuchit, and there are three principles which underlie the halachot governing glass utensils. Well, let's see what they are. Kli cheres, earthenware utensils, bolea umaflit. Earthenware utensils absorb, bolea, absorb the taste of whatever is cooked in them or stored in them. Umaflit, and the earthenware utensils will then release that taste into whatever is stored in them or cooked in them the next time around. Umeshama mashbatocho. An earthenware utensil contains. This is probably unglazed, right? Probably unglazed. Doesn't say anything about glazing, so probably it's unglazed. A utensil, a kli, is by definition something which holds its contents. That's a complicated way of saying it doesn't leak. You pour water into it and it will hold the water. The water doesn't leak out. And that's true with an earthenware pot, an earthenware cup, whatever the utensil is, it holds its contents. It doesn't leak. Masha'en kain b'kli zchuchit. This is unlike glass utensils. Ta'ama mishum deshie, because your glass utensils are slippery. The surface is slippery. What's going on here in this text? According to the Avot, the Rabbi Natan, and this is a text embraced by the Ra'avya, embraced by the great authority in the High Middle Ages in France. Earthenware utensils absorb the taste of whatever is stored in them or cooked in them. Glass utensils are different. The surface of glass utensils are shie, slippery, and therefore glass utensils do not absorb any taste. And since they don't absorb any taste, there's nothing to release into the next batch of food that you cook in them or store in them. So the Tanaim, the great rabbis of the Mishnah, have established, and the Ravya embraces the view, that glass is non-absorbent, unlike earthenware. Now that is a terribly important idea, because the whole purpose of kashering a utensil, if a utensil has become treif, someone cooked pork in it, or mix-up was made with milk and meat, meat was cooked in a milk utensil, or the other way around. Well, if a utensil has absorbed a taste which is prohibited, milk and meat together, pork, whatever it is, a chametz on Pesach, if there's a prohibited taste absorbed into the walls and floor of the utensil, kashering is going to get rid of that taste. Well, glass doesn't absorb anything. There's nothing to kasher according to this. Now, that's the basis of a humongous leniency if it's going to be embraced by subsequent poskim. Let's see what the Shulchan Aruch says. Surely, there's no more authoritative source in halacha than the Shulchan Aruch, early 17th century. Rabbi Yosef Karo was the author. Let's see what he has to say about glass absorbing tastes. These are his words. These are the words of Shulchan Aruch. Kli zechit, glass utensil, afilu machnisam lekiyum, even if you use long-term storage. Cheese, well, milk is not going to have long-term storage, is it? But milk, beer, which is chametz. Someone stored treif mutton stew in a glass utensil. It doesn't matter what the food is, even if it's long-term storage. Afilu mishtamesh behem b'chamim, even if it's hot. The pork was cooked in a glass utensil. A mix-up was made, and milk and meat were cooked in the glass utensil. Chametz, spaghetti was cooked in the glass utensil. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about long-term storage, where in the course of time you might think that there's absorption of taste. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about cooking the pasta in the glass utensil. Nothing matters. Ein tzrichim shum hechsher. These utensils require absolutely no preparation. And note that the chapter we are quoting from is in Hilchot Pesach. In the context of the Shulchan Aruch talking about Pesach and the preparations for Pesach, the Shulchan Aruch says flat out, the opinion of the Ra'avya, derived from the Avot de Rabbi Natan, is the definitive halacha. Glass does not absorb, and therefore no special prohibition, no special preparation is required for Pesach. The glass utensils in which you had whiskey made out of grain whiskeys, grain spirits, or the glass utensils in which you had hot spaghetti or bread or anything. It doesn't matter. Pork. It doesn't matter what was in the utensil. It doesn't matter if it was cooked there or long-term storage. Nothing matters. Einam bol'im. Glass utensils do not absorb taste, and therefore, b'shtifa ba'alma, ordinary rinsing, ordinary washing, just like you would do all year long. When you're finished using a utensil, you wash it up. They didn't have detergents in those days. Oh, they rub sand, whatever your normal method is of cleaning your utensils. After you're done with them, suggy lahu, that's enough. That's all you have to do. No, this is a great leniency. According to this, if you have a set of glass dishes, a set of Pyrex baking trays, Pyrex heat resistant pot in which you boil your pasta. Nothing matters. Just clean it like you would normally clean it after use all year long, and it's ready to go for Pesach. Well, anyone who knows anything about rabbis knows that they devote most of their time to arguing with each other. And therefore, it's not surprising that there's a divergence of thought on this issue. Not everyone embraces the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch. You might have heard, like I have heard so many times, oh, a Torah observant Jew is bound by what it says in the Shulchan Aruch. I can't count the number of times people have told me that. Well, that's a very interesting idea, but open up the Shulchan Aruch at random on every page, stab your finger on the text of the Shulchan Aruch, and I guarantee you, you will find a machloket, you will find divergence of thought. Not everyone agrees with anything in the world of halacha. Rabbis disagree with each other. They fight with each other all the time. And the Haggah, the note added by Rav Moshe Isserles, the Ashkenaz annotator of the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch was written by Rabbi Yosef Karo, great Sephardic authority. The Ramah, living in Poland, Krakow, Poland, early 17th century, he added Ashkenaz notes to the Shulchan Aruch. Let's see what he says. Yesh machmirim. Some people are strict regarding glass utensils. And whenever the Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Isserles from Poland says that, what he means is the Ashkenaz team is strict. Sfaradim, of course, follow the Sephardic authorities, and the Shulchan Aruch is following in their footsteps, saying that glass does not absorb. But we Ashkenazim disagree. Omrim, we Ashkenazim say, Kli zchuchit afilu hagalalo mahanilu. Ashkenaz authorities say not only does glass absorb and then release the taste into the next food, which is cooked in it or stored in it, not only does it absorb and release tastes, but Hagala, kashering, is useless. There is no way to kasher it. It's hard to imagine a bigger disagreement. This is from one extreme to the other extreme. And this is an extreme machloket. According to the Shulchan Aruch and Sephardic authorities, glass is always kosher. Just needs ordinary cleaning. If someone cooked pork in it, just clean it and make sure there's no pork left in the utensil. Now it's kosher, and you can use it for kosher stuff. Uh, the most extreme disagreement possible is that of the Ramah and the Ashkenaz authorities. Not only does glass absorb and release taste, but if it has absorbed a prohibited taste, pork or chametz before Pesach, there is no way to kasher it. It's just hopeless. V'chein minhag b'Ashkenaz u'v'b'ninot elu. That's exactly what we Ashkenazim hold here Germany, Poland, the whole East European, Middle Europe and Eastern European Jewish communities. וכן כלי כסף שיש בתוכם התוך זכוכית. Similarly, silver utensils, a silver cup, silver utensils which are glazed, have a glass, a layer of glass coating on them. Korim geschmelzt. That's what in Yiddish is called geschmelzt, glazed. The glass is melted in a very thin layer over the silver. Ein l'hagilan, since there's glass in these utensils, it's hopeless. There is no way to kasher them. They simply cannot be used for Pesach, and if they were previously used for pork, there's simply no way to save them because there's glass involved. The glass is part of the utensil. That's if the glass is on the inside surface of the pot. That's if the glass is on the inside surface of the cup. Oh, mibachutz. If the glass is only on the outside, eino mazik, that doesn't matter because there's not going to be any absorption from the outside. The absorption is only going to be what's in the utensil, not what's outside the utensil. Bottom line, it's a huge machloket. Sephardic authorities, lenient as can possibly be. Nothing matters. Everything is always correct with glass utensils. Ashkenaz poskim as strict can be. Not only is it prohibited to use a glass utensil which previously was used for pork or previously used for chametz and now it's Pesach, but it's hopeless to save the situation. There simply is no way to kasher it. Let's go one step further. The Gemara in Pesachim is the source of these ideas. And what the Gemara says, these are the words of the Gemara. HaTorah ha'ida. Torah testifies. The verses in the Torah testify. Al kli cheres, that earthenware utensils, eino yotzei midei dofna l'olam, taste which has been absorbed into the walls and the floor of an earthenware utensil never, ever leaves. And therefore, if the earthenware utensil was used for treif or chametz, it's hopeless. There is no way to kasher it. Now, Rashi explains, where are the verses in the Torah that testify that earthenware utensils cannot be kashered? Well, kevan shabola, since these utensils absorb, and anyone who's used an earthenware, presumably unglazed, anyone who's used an earthenware utensil knows that it absorbs. How do we know? Where in the Torah are we taught that there's no way to extract, there's no way to bring out, to take out the absorbed taste and kasher the utensil? Where in the Torah does it say this? Hare b'kli eitz umatachot katav lacha. The Torah says I'm not going to bother telling you where the verses are because you have the exact chapter and verse on the screen. The Torah says, Yishatef, you can kasher wood and metal utensils by immersion in hot water. Ta'aviru ba'esh, as long as you can kasher them by heat. Morak v'shutaf, another verse which says that you can clean them and kasher them. Aval b'kli cheres, the verse says yishaver. Once a kli cheres, once an earthenware utensil has become prohibited, the only solution is yishaver, break it and throw it out. Wood utensils, metal utensils can be saved by kashering. Wood utensils, earthenware utensils, yishaver, have to be destroyed. So we know that earthenware utensils are hopeless if they become treif. The Ramah in the Shulchan Aruch and the Ashkenaz poskim say glass has exactly the same status as earthenware. If it has become prohibited, it's hopeless, and there's no way to save it. Mordechai, from back in the days of the Tosafot, writes as follows. Rabbeinu Yechiel, one of the great rabbis of the Tosafot, מפרש תהני כוסות של זכוכית ששתו בהם שעה ימות השנה. Rabbi Yechiel, one of the great rabbis of the Tosafot, teaches us that glass utensils, which you used all year long, drinking glasses, which you used all year long for drinking, asur lishtot bahem b'Pesach, you're not allowed to use those drinking glasses on Pesach. Afilu al yidei irui, even if you kasher them, there is no way to kasher them. Mishum dehave kikli cheres. Glass utensils have exactly the same halachic status as earthenware utensils. Why? Why? What sense does that make? Glass and earthenware, what's the connection between them? Ho'il u'techilat, it should say techilat with a yud, techilat briatan minachol, because glass is manufactured out of sand. It's a silicate product. You put sand in high heat, melt it, and you get glass. That's the way they always made glass in antiquity. That's the way glass is made to this very day. There is no other way to make glass. Glass is made out of molten sand. And the Torah testifies in the verses we just quoted, and we learn from the verses in the Torah that earthenware utensils, if become prohibited, cannot be saved. If they're used for chametz, there's no way to save them and use them for Pesach. The Torah says that flat out regarding earthenware utensils. Glass is made of the earth. You take sand, that's like earth, and you make a utensil out of it. Tchilat briatan, the origin of glass is in the earth. That's tchilat briatan, should be spelled with a yud. Tchilat briatan, glass utensils are made out of the earth and have the halachic status of being the earth. Now notice in passing that a very important conceptual point has been incorporated into the discussion here. We began the discussion by talking about tastes which are absorbed and then released when you reuse the utensil. All of a sudden, the focus of the discussion has changed. We're no longer talking about absorption and release. We're no longer talking about the facts of absorption and release of taste. Instead, we're talking about a conceptual category, the definition of which no longer depends on the facts of absorption and release, but rather depends upon a theoretical consideration. What is the origin of the material out of which the utensil is made? If the origin of the utensil out of which the utensil is made comes from the earth, sand, then it has the same halachic status as earthenware utensils. Now, this is from the Middle Ages, these texts, right? But in modern times, these ideas have become quite important in rabbinic discussions. Are we really concerned about metal might or might not come from the other? That's a separate discussion. But see, the Torah talks about kashering metal, so we know that's okay. In the modern discussions, we get the following ideas. When we speak about the acceptability of utensils after they were used for pork or chametz or whatever, when we speak about the kashrus of utensils, are we talking about the facts of absorbed taste. Molecules get trapped in the walls and floor of the utensil, and then those molecules are released into whatever you cook next time. Are we talking about facts which are observable? Well, not with the eyes, but tasteable. Are we talking about things which you can actually taste? Or are we talking about some theoretical halachic categories? Now, as you know, in modern times, beginning around the 17th century, in modern times, there have been a significant number of points of conflict between uh, halacha rooted in the Mishnah, the Gemara, and the great Rishonim, as opposed to modern science beginning in the 17th century. That's more or less when modern science began. And as science grew, especially in the 18th century, as modern science grew, the number of points of conflict between halacha and science grew and grew and grew. And this idea on the screen at the moment, already embedded in the thinking of the great Rishonim, this idea that we're not actually talking about molecules of pork being absorbed into the walls of the utensil and then released into what you cook. What we're really talking about are halachic categories. If you cook pork in a utensil, the act of cooking prohibits the utensil. Hagala, subsequent immersion in boiling water, permits the utensil. This conceptual framework corresponds very nicely with many other well-established areas of halacha. For example, kosher shechita, the act of correctly slaughtering an animal, permits eating the meat. Incorrect slaughtering of the animal, if something goes wrong with the shechita process, the animal is killed by knocking it over its head, or some halachically incorrect method of killing or died by itself. Well, the act of killing the animal in an improper way, knocking it on its head, or anything other than proper shechita, the act of improper killing of the animal is an act which prohibits eating the meat. Well, we see that kashrus, in Torah terms, is quite familiar with speaking about different actions prohibiting and other actions permitting the food. Properly soaking and salting the meat permits eating the meat. Properly kashering the utensil is a ritual procedure which permits using the utensil. Cooking the prohibited food is an action which prohibits using the utensil. By shifting the discussion, like we have on the sources in the screen at the moment, away from the facts of absorption and release to the halachic concept of actions prohibiting or permitting different objects, the whole tension between the facts of absorption and halacha is very easily resolved. Now let's think about this for a moment on the microscopic level. Metal, part of the definition of metal, the many characteristics of metal. One of the key characteristics of metal is that on the microscopic level, it's a crystal. The molecules, whether we're talking about pig iron or stainless steel or silver, it really doesn't matter what the metal is. On the microscopic level, the molecules are in a crystal lattice. The molecules are organized in a very rigorous structure. That's true with metals. Glass, on the other hand, is not a metal. Metals, among their many characteristics, metals have a melting point. You can look up in a chart, you name the metal, you can look up in a book what the melting temperature of the metal is. At a certain specific specific temperature. The metal switches from solid to liquid, a phase change. That's true with crystals, with metals. They melt. Unlike glass, glass on the microscopic level is not a crystal. On the microscopic level, the molecules of glass are helter-skelter. It's an amorphous structure. Well, there is no specific structure on the molecular level. There is no structure in glass. Glass does not melt. As you heat it up, it gets softer and softer and softer, but there's no specific temperature at which you get a phase change. There's no specific temperature at which the glass switches from a little bit over the temperature solid, a little bit under the temperature solid, a little bit over the temperature liquid. That's metals do that. Glass doesn't do that. Now, if you think about these ideas a little bit further, you'll come very quickly to the conclusion that on the surface of a metal utensil, stainless steel, whatever you have in your kitchen today, on the surface of the metal utensil, there are relatively few gaps and fissures into which molecules of the food might get trapped. Whatever it is you cook in the metal utensil, very few molecules of whatever it is you cook, very few, vanishingly few molecules are going to get trapped in the structure of the metal. Unlike glass, glass on the molecular level is amorphous. There is no rigorous structure to the molecules, and therefore the gaps and crevices on the surface of glass are far larger, far larger than anything you'll have in metal, and therefore many more molecules of whatever it is you're cooking, much more gets trapped in the walls and in the floor of a glass utensil than a metal utensil. Oh, but if we set aside all of the discussion of the facts of absorption and release, like the sources on the screen want us to do, then we need no longer be concerned with the scientific facts of where the molecules go when you cook and store items in the utensil. We need no longer be concerned with the scientific facts because it's rather like shechita or soaking and salting of meat. If you do the procedure correctly, hagala, immersion in boiling water, you will permit the use of the utensil. If you do it incorrectly, it's like improperly killing an animal, and you prohibit the meat in the animal. That's all there is to it. Let's go one step further. I want to go more or less in chronological order. There are two great commentaries, two principal commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch. First, we're going to look at the Taz, then we're going to look at the Magen Avram. These are the two most important, the two principal commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch. Both are from the 17th century, and both are from Eastern Europe. The Ramah taught us, Yesh Machmirim. The Ramah taught us that the Ashkenaz team is strict about glass utensils. Not only do they have the status of absorbing, it's not exactly the same as saying that they absorb. Not only do they have the status of absorption, but they cannot be kashered. There's no way to get the taste out. Yeah, no, yeah. A private question on chat asks if in fact the amount of the number of molecules absorbed in glass or metal in fact is enough to be detectable by ordinary taste. The answer to this question is try it out yourself. I've experimented myself many times. I don't run a chemistry laboratory in my kitchen. My experiments are not up to scientific standards, but you can do it yourself. Take This is what I've done many, many, many times. Take a pot, metal pot, in which meat has been cooked in preparation for Shabbat. Empty the pot, clean it very carefully, fill it with water, boil the water in the pot, and leave the hot water on a source of heat in order to prepare tea and coffee on Shabbat. Now, I can't count the number of times I have offered guests tea made with the hot water boiled in the pot, which a few hours earlier was used for cooking meat, and I slyly ask the guests after they've tasted the tea, do you detect the taste of meat in that tea? I've never had a guest who could figure out what I'm talking about. In fact, no. The taste of the meat is, in fact, not detectable. Nonetheless, if we take the approach which I outlined on the previous screen, cooking meat in the pot does prohibit using the pot for milk. And if you use the pot in a prohibited way, having boiled milk in the pot, which previously was used for meat, is going to prohibit the milk. So the Taz, in his commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, of course, quotes the Ramah. The Ashkenaz team is strict regarding glass utensils. The Sviralu, because the Ashkenaz team thinks, Ashkenaz authorities assimilate glass utensils to the category of earthenware utensils. V'kol makom, in any event, pashut, shebediavad ein isur klal. Oh, but all of this is lechatchila and not b'diavad. Everyone understands the distinction between lechatchila and b'diavad. The fleshik pot in which milk was accidentally cooked. You're not allowed to cook the milk, heat the milk in the fleshik pot. That's prohibited. It's lechatchila prohibited. You're not allowed to do it. But b'diavad, if it already happened, there's room for leniency. Lechatchila, initially, if the question is permitted or prohibited to use the utensil, here we work with the theoretical framework, which assimilates earthenware utensils to the halacha category of earthenware. But if a mistake was made and the utensil was used in an improper way, but we switch horses and follow the facts. And since in the facts no taste of meat was released into the milk cooked in the fleshik pot, so b'diavad there's room for leniency. Let me rephrase the position of the Taz in a more conceptual way. The position of the Ramah, according to the Taz, is a chumrah, a strict position above and beyond the minimum requirements of halacha. As far as the minimum requirements of halacha are concerned, there's no disagreement. Everyone agrees with what the Shulchan Aruch taught us based on the previous screens. Glass does not absorb. That's the fundamentally correct halacha. Oh, but Ashkenazim have accepted upon themselves, Ashkenazim have embraced a chumrah, a strict practice above and beyond the requirements of halacha, but that the embrace of the strict view of glass, that's lechatchila. That's a chumrah, a strict position, which teaches us what to do and what not to do. But if a mistake was made, mistakes happen, then everyone agrees that the fundamental halacha is in accord with the Shulchan Aruch, the lenient authorities we saw. That's what the Taz says. Magen Avram commenting, another type. I'm really not a good typist. Magen Avram commenting on the words of the Ramah, v'chein minhag, it should be with a gimel. The Ramah said, in Ashkenaz territory, in Central and Eastern Europe, the minhag is to be strict. Aval b'diavad ein lahachmir. Magen Avram agrees exactly with what the Taz taught us at the top of the screen. The whole chumrah, the whole strict practice of the Ashkenaz poskim is lechatchila that governs how you should use the utensils. But b'diavad, if the utensils were used in the incorrect way, there's room for leniency. And please remember that this whole discussion, all the sources we've had today, are all within the context of Pesach. Uh, the glass utensils used all year long, according to the fundamental halacha, as embraced by the Shulchan Aruch, just clean them and use them for Pesach. Ashkenaz authorities say clean them and put them aside. But if a mistake was made, well, mistakes happen. It's not going to prohibit the food. Uh, take this idea and think about the context. Rabbis like to talk about hypothetical situations which are totally unrealistic and would never happen in the real world. But imagine for a moment the following fantastical situation, which I know would never happen. Imagine that an Ashkenazi gets invited to a Sephardic household on Pesach. And then the Sephardim prepared the food in their glass utensils, which which they use all year long for chametz. And now the Ashkenazi guest is offered to eat that food. Is the food permitted or prohibited? Well, from the Ashkenaz point of view, the hosts should not have used those utensils. Of course, the host didn't ask the Ashkenaz rabbis. They asked their rabbis, who told them that it's okay. As far as the food is concerned, even the Ashkenaz authorities agree that the food is permitted and there's no objection to eating it. Let's go one step further. We've seen this line of leniency beginning in the days of the Mishnah and down to the Shulchan Aruch and the commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch. I think the most authoritative commentary on the Shulchan Aruch in the 20th century, beginning of the 20th century, a little bit over 100 years ago, was the Mishnah Brura. I think everyone knows the Mishnah Brura, should need no introduction. He refers to what the Ramah just taught us. Ashkenazim are strict regarding glass. Hatam desfir lahu deklis chuchis hoil tchilas briyoso menachol. Since glass is made out of sand, and therefore it has this conceptual connection with your earthenware utensils. Therefore, harechu kekli cheres. Therefore, it should have the halachic status of kli cheres and cannot even be kashered. Let's now see whether these sources are typical, representative of the mainstream Ashkenaz authorities. As far as the Sephardic authorities are concerned, there's nothing to talk about. Everything is using glass utensils. Everything is going to be okay as long as the glass utensils are clean. What about the principal Ashkenaz authorities? Are they unanimously in agreement with the strict position? The Marasham says as follows: Legabe sha'ar isurim, regarding all the other prohibited foods, aside from Pesach, everything except chametz, as pork, milk and meat, shellfish, every prohibition aside from chametz, shar isurim, ein chash klal b'kli suchis. We Ashkenazim have no problem using the same glass utensils for milk and meat. Oh, you buy a glass utensil from a non-Jew who cooked pork in it. As long as it's clean, we Ashkenaz poskim have no objection to even using it, even hot, even if you're going to cook in it. Ein chash bazeh ela le'inyan Pesach. Remember, all of the sources we've seen are in the context of preparation for Pesach. When the Ramah told us that Ashkenazim are very strict regarding glass, that's in the context of Pesach as far as chametz is concerned. Chametz is a special case of prohibited food. And in the special case of chametz, Ashkenaz poskim are strict and consider glass utensils to have the status of kli cheres, earthenware. But any other area of kashrus, there's no controversy whatsoever between Sephardic and Ashkenaz authorities. The Tuv Tam Vadas, written by Rav Shlomo Kluger. Rav Shlomo Kluger, the 19th century rabbi of Brod in Poland. He was one of the strictest of the Ashkenaz poskim. I always imagine that the muscles in his fingers were so accustomed to writing the word asur that it was very difficult for him to force his hand into the formation of the letters mutar, permitted. But let's see what the great strict Ashkenaz posik, the Rav Shlomo Kluger of Brod, what he has to say on the issue. Yesh lomar, we have to say, ma de chomer chometz yoter mishar isurim le'inyan klis chuchis. Why are we strict regarding the use of glass utensils only for Pesach and not for other issues in kashrut, pork, milk, and meat? Well, why is it only chametz that we are so strict with in using glass utensils? Yesh lamar, the reason has to be the law of mekoach chumra de chametzu. It's not because chametz is so strict. You know, the Torah itself is extraordinarily strict regarding the laws of chametz. Unlike other prohibited foods, chametz carries with it the penalty of kores, the most severe penalty known in the Torah. Unlike other prohibited foods, the Torah piles prohibition upon prohibition regarding chametz. Not only is chametz prohibited, you're not even allowed to see it. You're not even allowed to own it. You're not even allowed to get any benefit from it. You're not even allowed to sell it. The Torah even prohibits chametz on the day before Pesach, on Erev Pesach. The Torah has a special prohibition in it for mixtures containing chametz. The Torah piles prohibition upon prohibition with chametz, with very severe penalty. It's true that the Torah is extraordinarily strict regarding chametz, but that's not the reason that Ashkenaz poskim are strict regarding glass utensils. Rak yesh lomar, the reason is, the truth is, any material, including glass, any material absorbs and a little bit of taste. Some molecules get trapped in anything. Makom makom, but have rak mashu. But the amount of absorption in glass is very, very small. Yeah, you're thinking the same might be said about stainless steel, but let's leave that for a different series of shiurim. The amount of absorption, they didn't have stainless steel back in the days of the Tuv Tam Vadas. The amount of absorption in glass is very, very small, usually negligible. Other utensils absorb much more taste than glass. Lachein b'chametz, chametz, one of the strict elements of chametz, is the rule of 1/60th does not apply to chametz. Chametz, even in minute quantities, will prohibit a mixture. Even though the tiniest amount of chametz in a huge mixture prohibits everything, the rule of 1 part in 60 does not work with chametz. That's why the Ashkenaz poskim are strict regarding glass. As far as pork is concerned, as far as milk and meat is concerned, the amount of absorption and release of taste with glass is negligible and of no significance. Oh, but chametz, even the smallest amount will prohibit a mixture. That is the reason for being strict. Okay, all of this is conceptual background. Now, let's talk about bottom line. how to use glass utensils, which you've used all year long. Bottom line, how can they be prepared for Pesach if they can be prepared? Let's see the spectrum of thinking. The Sephardic authorities, not surprisingly led by Rav Ovad Yosef, say as follows. This is the question which they asked him. They asked Rav Ovad Yosef, the great Sephardic authority, clay, pyrex, and Duralex, heat-resistant glass, by any other name. Heat-resistant glass, shemishtamshim behem b'chol hashana b'chametz, which you use all year long with chametz. Is it okay to use them for Pesach just by washing them, like ordinary glass? This newfangled material, Duralex, Pyrex, heat-resistant glass, which they didn't have in earlier generations. I'm even old enough to remember when it was first introduced. Does it have the status of ordinary glass? Well, maybe you should do Hagala, immersion in boiling water with heat-resistant glass. That's the question. Answer? These are the words of Rav Ovadia. Hine Maran Shulchan Aruch, we learned in the Shulchan Aruch that the Shulchan Aruch paskins, like all the great authorities, that glass does not absorb at all, and therefore no preparation is required for Pesach, just ordinary washing. Therefore, therefore it seems to me that Pyrex and Duralex, heat-resistant glass by any other name, mutar l'Sfaradim ve'edot HaMizrach. Sfaradim are allowed to use them on Pesach after ordinary cleaning, and therefore Sephardic authorities and the Sephardic communities which follow them, obviously, can prepare their chametz glass utensils from all year long just by ordinary washing, even if it's special heat-resistant glass. Din kelim elu kashar zchuchit. There's no difference in halacha between ordinary glass and heat-resistant glass. Even though the heat-resistant glass is used for baking, all kinds of uses that you could not use ordinary glass for. Ordinary glass cracks when you heat it up because it has an amorphous molecular structure. When you heat up the glass, it expands, right, as the molecules move quicker. The average distance between the molecules increases. When you heat up glass, it expands, and glass, being amorphous, does not expand uniformly through the entire utensil. And when you don't get uniform expansion, then you end up with cracks. That's why glass breaks if you heat it up or cool it down too quickly, because the expansion or contraction is not uniform. Even though glass baking trays, Duralex, Pyrex, can be used very hot, they don't crack. We don't have to learn about Bessemer ovens and exactly how they do it. Ein bolim klal, nonetheless, glass, whether it's heat resistant or not, has no status of absorption. Nachon lahadichem kama shalosh pa'amim. It would be nice to be strict and wash them 3 times. Well, that would be nice. You make sure they're really very clean. Wash them 3 times. That's good advice, he says. The Ashkenaz poskim, I take the Chayadim, Rav Avram Danzig, 19th century Vilna, Lithuania. I take him as a typical example of the Ashkenaz poskim. Klei zchuchit, glass utensils, afilu butelkes. If you know Yiddish, butelkes in Yiddish means bottles, bakbukim, bottles. Sheshohim b'hem shecha, beer bottles, where beer is chametz. Beer bottles, which stored beer for a long time. The beer could be in there for months. Yesh omrim dischuchit eino bolea klal. The Sephardic authorities tell us that the beer bottles do not absorb any taste. Even if the chametz was poured hot into the bottles. Those poskim, the Sephardic authorities say just ordinary cleaning is sufficient. But the Ashkenazim are stricter, and they hold that you can't even kasher glass, and that's the Ashkenaz minhag. Oh, lechatchila, But the Evid, if a mistake was made, Ashkenaz poskim agree with the Sephardic poskim. Uvamokum she'en benimtza kli zkuchit ve'en lo kosot ushar kelim rak mechubatzim, in a situation where you have no other dishes to use for Pesach, in a situation where you have no other drinking glasses to use for Pesach, in a situation where you have only glass utensils, nearly, it seems to me, the putelkes, that bottles are hopeless. Bottles are hopeless to prepare for Pesach, sheyadua shmarim nidbakim behem, because the chametz is going to get stuck in them, and you cannot stick your hand into the bottle to clean it well. Bottles have a narrow opening. It's hard to get inside to do a thorough cleaning, and therefore hopeless. He goes on and says, "Avol kosot," but drinking glasses, if you can clean them very well and you have no other drinking glasses to use, well, we know that b'diavad all is going to be well, that even Ashkenazim can prepare drinking glasses if you wash them very well. And here is the definition. Here is the procedure for washing very well. Namely, ייתן אותם בכלי אחר, ישב במים יותר מ-24 שעות. Soak the drinking glasses in water. Submerge them in water and soak them for at least 24 hours. Then you pour out the water and you add fresh water. And you soak them another period of time, at least another 24 hours in clean water. And you do it a third time, switching the water again and soaking a third time in water for at least 24 hours. Then, if you've done that, that's called thorough cleaning, and now Ashkenazim can use the drinking glasses on Pesach. You use grandma's bathtub. Why not? And if you don't have anything else to use on Pesach and you can't afford to buy new drinking glasses, then since b'diavad all is going to be permitted, there's no objection to using this cleaning method. But b'makom nimtza liknot chadashim, if you can afford to buy new glasses for Pesach, then one should not rely upon this leniency. Okay, bottom line, Sephardic authorities, very lenient. The glass utensils just have to be cleaned in the ordinary way, and they're ready for Pesach, even if it's heat-resistant glass like Duralex or Pyrex or by any other brand name. Ashkenaz poskim, sort of very strict. If possible, l'chatchila, one should not use glass utensils from all year long for Pesach at all. If a mistake was made, b'diavad, there's room for leniency. And if you have no other utensils to use, and we're talking about something like a drinking glass where you can get your hand inside and clean it very well, unlike a bottle where it's hard to get inside, then the 3-day soaking process would be sufficient even for Ashkenazim. With this, I'm going to pause and wish you a good week and a safe week and a Shabbat Shalom, and encourage you to continue watching our other classes in the lead up to Pesach regarding the order of Leil HaSeder. Until next week, Shalom, Shalom.
You have another
Have a
class,
wonderful safe week.
Thank you.
Rabbi Fink? Do you have
Yes,
another
of course.
class?
I do, but I don't have the schedule in front of me.
Oh,
But it's
okay.
all on it's all on the website.
Okay, thank you. Shabbat
For another-
Shalom.
Thank you for another.
Thank you.
My pleasure.